Thomas P. Farley is a manners expert and author who has been interviewed on matters of etiquette by The Today Show, the CBS Early Show, The New York Times, the LA Times, as well as TV and radio stations across the country. He's been a guest lecturer at New York University's School of Continuing and Professional Studies and offers manners seminars for corporations and classes for school children. Welcome to the show, Thomas P. Farley, also known as Mr. Manners.
Thank you so much, ladies. Great to be on the show.
Yeah, we're glad to have you. It's via Skype, and you are looking very dapper. And
well, I appreciate that. That's high praise coming from the both of you.
Oh,
stop it.
Cut it out.
I feel like we need to be on our best behavior and mind our P's and Q's with you.
You do. Watch out. I'm taking notes.
Are people better or worse behaved today than they used to be in the olden days?
You know, there's this fallacy that back in the day, people were just so wonderfully behaved. And yet, when you do the reading, there are passages that sound like they were written yesterday, and they're actually talking about things that happened several hundred years ago. So quotations about parents complaining about how kids have no respect for their elders and they don't know how to treat the people around them anymore. This has been going on for centuries. What's changed, though, is the technology that we've got today that has really absorbed all of our time and our energy, and we're not paying as much attention to our fellow man. And that is definitely something that's different, and it's an alarming trend.
Well, that's a great point. I mean, what about this whole trend of when you go out to dinner and you've got your, everyone's attached to their personal devices, and you put the device on the table and you're having a conversation and the phone rings or beeps or someone chimes in with a word or whatever. What's the etiquette around that? Because it seems like that's all gone to hell in a handbasket, in my opinion.
So, have you both heard of the phone stack concept?
No.
No? Okay, so this is something that you need to introduce to your friends if this is something that you believe in. I'm a big proponent, where everybody at the start of a meal takes out their phone and they put it in a stack in the middle of the table, kind of like a game. And the idea is that the first person who reaches for the phone during the meal pays for everybody's meal.
Yes!
Oh!
I like that. I want to go out to dinner with Steph.
Yes.
Are you one of those people who just can't resist?
Well, I have this thing about... I have 2 kids and I want to have my phone with me. I use that as the reason. But then it beeps and, and then I'm looking at it. Hey, come on, Lauren.
Oh.
That's bad manners to call me out like that. Oh.
It's done with love, I can tell.
It is done with love.
I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, we walk through the streets. We walk into, through the hallways at our office, in our office building, on our phone. We rarely look up at our coworkers and say hello. It's hold on just 1 second. And everybody's so used to being available at all times that people want it, and they want it now. Your clients, your kids, your mother. I mean, it's nonstop. How can we phone stack in other areas of our life?
Ooh, good question.
That's a great question. Well, actually, there is a restaurant in Beverly Hills that's taken this very issue into its own hands, where they are giving people a discount. I think it's a $40 or $50 discount off their meal if they agree to volunteer their phones when they enter the restaurant. So even business establishments have realized how intrusive something like a telephone can be, not just to what's going on at that table, but the dynamic of the restaurant. And people are snapping photographs of their meals and tweeting dishes and putting it up on Facebook. And people, you're not enjoying the moment when you're doing that. So I think it's really important to set that tone, whether you're in a conference room or I missed the debates tonight. I was in a Broadway theater, and despite the fact that they make the announcement before every show, sure enough, a couple chairs away from me, somebody's phone goes off. It's inevitable. So I think we all just have to be super vigilant about it. It's awareness. A lot of these technologies, cell phones have been around for a while, but some of these technologies are newer for people. Social media, we're still kind of finding what's appropriate and what's not. So I think it will improve. We're in that kind of Wild West stage right now with a lot of this technology.
That's a great way to put it. Well, so we talked about how etiquette has always been needed throughout time, that no one is better or worse behaved now. It's just different issues. What would you say are the cornerstones of good manners?
Well, that's a wonderful question, because I draw a very distinct line between etiquette and manners.
Okay, good.
Etiquette are essentially arbitrary rules that have been set up so that everybody by the same playbook and so that nobody gets embarrassed. So something as seemingly arbitrary as not wearing white after Labor Day. Now, that's not manners, it's etiquette. So for somebody who wants to feel like they fit in and that they're doing the thing that everybody else is doing, the fact that, your water glass is on the right-hand side of your plate versus the left. There's not really a driving reason for that to be the case. It's just, you have to pick one, so pick one so that everybody can follow suit. So that's etiquette. Okay. Manners are much more universal. Manners are kindness, consideration, things like saying please and thank you. Those have been around since caveman times. The etiquette was really developed by the upper classes back in the day to allow the lower classes to feel like they knew how to behave when they were in different social situations.
Wow, class lines.
Yeah, totally.
The key is with good etiquette, though, is that it should never be used to make people feel badly about themselves. And that's a reason I don't use the term etiquette terribly often in my work. I much prefer the word manners, because etiquette tends to be a little bit of a turnoff for people, and it's because of the way it can be employed. Mm-hmm. People act kind of snobby and a little bit standoffish, like they're lording it over you. They know something that you don't know. That's at the heart of it. That's not good etiquette. That's actually really bad etiquette.
And that's bad manners.
Exactly. Got it. You figured it out.
So when we're raising our children, or I don't know, just living our lives on a day-to-day basis, are there any kind of rules of thumb that everyone should know, or that they need to be taught, that aren't just basic common sense, or is there a rule book here?
Well, I think it is pretty basic when you really boil it down. And what I like to say, and as you indicated, I do programs for school children. The basic words that they all need to know and use are please, sorry, excuse me, and thank you. And honestly, if you can get your kids to use those words on a regular basis, that's 99% of all manners that they will ever need to know throughout their lives. Mm-hmm. And it is important to start early. Is it that important that they know how to address the king of Siam? Well, anyway, so who cares? Do they need to know what fork to use if they're eating escargot? That's the once every 100 years problem.
Right.
The stuff that's really important.
You don't just suck the snail out of the shell.
I just use my fingers.
A fork?
Is that a problem?
You've seen the Pretty Woman scene, right, where she flings it across the restaurant.
Those suckers are slippery.
They are.
I have a question about thank you notes. So I was a big thank you note writer, always handwritten, personalized, for weddings, birthdays, and things like this. And now, first of all, I heard there was a 2-week expiration. Like, you should always send a thank you note within 2 weeks. Now, with weddings, they give you a year or whatever they say. But no? Okay, wrong. What about...
It's a fallacy.
So I just did this fundraiser, and I asked people who I know to donate to a cause, and then I'm doing a race. And I immediately wrote thank you emails the second I got my donations, or I picked up the phone in a couple of instances and called and thanked them personally. Do I also need to handwrite thank you notes? Like, I'm getting ready for the race. It's next week. Is it too late? I've been fundraising for the last few months, or is it still okay to write them now? Handwritten through the mail thank you notes.
I think it'd be great to do it after the race, to talk about how you did and how you thought about them when you were running. Let's face it, nobody is ever going to complain about receiving a thank you note. It's a wonderful, warm experience. We get such little handwritten correspondence. Most of us don't even know what our friend's handwriting looks like, right, because we don't see it anymore. Mm-hmm. Emails don't get taped to refrigerators. Thank you notes do. Thank you notes get pin corked up on the bulletin board at work. I think if you really want to go the extra mile, a handwritten thank you note is a wonderful way to go. Now, if you can't get it together and you know that it's not practical for you to do so, an email is a substitute.
Not as good.
Standard though. Not as good.
But I'm not too late. I'm not. So how late is too late with a handwritten thank you note? Just a quickie.
Well, I'm a big fan of what Jacqueline Kennedy did, which was send it out within 24 hours. And if you make that your discipline, you get it done. You mentioned the bride and groom, and it should not just be the bride. The bride and groom bear joint responsibility for getting those thank you notes out. So don't think that you can just shove that over to your lovely little wife and have her handle it. That's not fair. How does she know your great Aunt Millicent or anything relevant to put in that note? She doesn't. So divvy it up appropriately. But if you got a check in that same envelope, how long do you think it's going to take you to cash the check? You're going to wait a year to cash the check? No.
Heck
and
no.
Took you more time to cash the check than it would to actually write the thank you note. So my thing is, if you don't have time to write the thank you note, then you shouldn't have time to write the check or to cash the check.
Okay. I love it. Thomas Farley, we have so many more things we need to learn about manners, so we're going to have you back another time.
It'd be my pleasure.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me on, ladies.